It was late when my phone buzzed. I barely glanced at it, expecting the usual, a meme, a routine message, nothing urgent. But when I saw her name, I felt a strange chill. I'm staying at a friend for a week. No explanation. No why or sorry. Just those words. I read them over and over, try and make sense of them. My first instinct was disbelief. I tried to reason. Maybe she really needed space. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was overreacting. I said nothing. I wanted to text back, to ask, to demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I swallowed the knot in my chest and tried to focus on work, on anything that would keep my mind from spiraling. But every hour, every minute, was filled with questions that had no answers. Over the next day, the signs started to accumulate, tiny and seemingly harmless at first. Missed calls I didn't recognize, texts I wasn't meant to see, subtle hints in her social media activity that she was somewhere, with someone that wasn't me. I questioned myself first. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I had imagined months of suspicion. But then came the details that couldn't be ignored. A mutual friend mentioned seeing her out the night before. Photos on her account hinted at a company dinner she hadn't mentioned. The way she avoided calls from me, calls I left polite concern, made my gut twist with dread. I replayed memories that now felt suspicious. In hindsight, the weekend she claimed she was working late, the evening she visited her parents, coming home slightly disheveled, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I had wanted to trust her, and I had loved her enough to close my eyes to the tiny cracks in our life. But now, the cracks had become chasms. 2 days passed in a fog. I barely slept. Every sound in the apartment, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the distant city noise, felt amplified, a reminder of her absence and the uncertainty that followed. I walked around the house she had left behind, touching her things, feeling a mix of longing and anger. I remembered how her laugh used to fill the rooms, how she used to rest her head against my shoulder in the quiet evenings, how she whispered my name when she thought I was asleep. And I questioned everything. Were those moments genuine, or were they just rehearsed warmth? It was on the evening of the second day that I found the first undeniable proof. I had been reorganizing the shelf by the living room when a small envelope slipped out from between books. It was addressed to me in handwriting that was unmistakably hers. My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside was a series of printed text messages from her phone to someone named C. The messages were casual at first, friendly, playful, but gradually they became intimate, flirtatious, suggestive. By the time I reached the last page, my chest felt tight, my vision blurred. She had told me she was at a friend's. She hadn't lied about the location completely. She was staying somewhere, but not a friend's. She was staying somewhere with someone else. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the messages trembling in my hands, my mind replaying every recent moment that now felt tainted. Every hug, every laugh, every night we spent in what I had thought was intimacy, all now felt like a performance, and I was the only audience member who hadn't been in on the act. When she finally returned home, I was waiting, not with anger, not with accusations, but with quiet. The apartment was cold, the silence heavier than words. She walked in, smiling nervously. "Hey," she said, as if nothing had changed. I held up the envelope. "I know," I said. Her eyes widened. Panic flickered, then guilt. She faltered, looking at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "It just so happened." I listened, in part because I wanted to understand, in part because I still loved her and wanted to see if a part of her had regretted it. She tried to explain, tried to justify, tried to apologize. I heard her words, but my heart was too raw to absorb them fully. Her voice was a mixture of remorse and rationalization, a reflection of someone trapped between desire and conscience. I didn't know if I could forgive her. Not immediately. Maybe not ever. But I realized that staying in anger or bitterness would only hurt me further. Love without trust is hollow. And the kind of love I wanted, honest, mutual, unwavering, no longer existed between us. Over the next weeks, I withdrew, Not with hatred, not with cruelty, but with self-preservation. I focused on myself, my work, my friends. I rebuilt my boundaries, piece by piece. I reflected on what I had learned. That love is not enough to sustain a relationship without respect and fidelity. That instincts should not be ignored. And that heartbreak, though excruciating, can be a teacher. The pain didn't vanish overnight. Memories of her lingered, some sweet, some sharp, some tinged with betrayal. I allowed myself to feel it all, the grief, the anger, the confusion. But I didn't let it define me. Eventually, I found quiet strength. I forgave, not for her sake, but for mine. Not to forget, but to free myself from the weight of resentment. I learned that closure is not about confrontation alone. It is about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your sense of self. She texted, "I'm staying at a friend's for a week." I said nothing. 2 days later, I discovered the truth. And though it broke me in ways I never imagined, it also taught me something invaluable. That betrayal is not the end unless you let it define you, and that self-respect is a foundation upon which any future love must be built. I still think about her sometimes, not with longing, but with understanding. The lessons linger, etched into my heart: vigilance, honesty, courage, and the resilience to rise from heartbreak stronger, wiser, and more whole than before. I learned to trust myself again. I learned to listen to the quiet voice of intuition I had ignored. And most importantly, I learned that leaving behind what no longer serves you is not weakness. It is strength. 2 days later, the truth came out, and though it hurt, I survived. I endured. I rebuilt. And I will never be the same, but in the best way possible.